Well, we suspected it might happen because of the increasingly uncontrolled spread of the Delta variant and the resurgence in COVID-19 cases. And it is happening. The CDC coming out with new mask guidelines yesterday. We are going backwards. The masks are going back on in many, many places. And seemingly overnight, I'm already seeing more masks just walking around. And yes, this is even for vaccinated people. We're going to look at the new guidelines, and I am going to sort of couch it all in saying the situation has not really changed that dramatically for vaccinated people, although it has changed, and it's important to understand the ways in which it has. But this is continuing to increasingly be a virus that is being spread by unvaccinated people, which is disproportionately seriously affecting unvaccinated people. And that, for now, appears to be the way it is going to continue. But
okay, so it's being spread by unvaccinated people, but people with the vaccine, this is what I'm hearing from this, people with the vaccine are not getting very sick, right? Is that the idea? That's what it sounds like. And if that's the case, then it seems like people should be able to like make their own decisions about what kind of risk tolerance they have or what kind of risk they want to expose themselves to. I mean, you know, I have the vaccine. I'm not like anti-vax, but this obsession with unvaxxed, like Republican, like it's not out of the question to imagine a world in 10 or 15 years where they go, oh, all these people who got this vaccine are getting, you know, this rare kind of cancer in their spleen, and we screwed up. Like that happens. We're not we're not that far advanced as human beings. Like things happen. Didn't this just happen with like the Ebola vaccine? Didn't that end up hurting people just a little while ago? So I don't know. It's not like out of the realm of possibility. If people are worried about it and they'd rather not get the vaccine, and anyone who would prefer to get the vaccine can get the vaccine, which seems to be the case. It was really easy for me to get the vaccine, and I'm a young single male. Like it seems like I should be in the last category to get it, and it was very easy for me to get it. So yeah, it seems like if people would prefer not to get the vaccine and they choose not to, they're the ones who are going to get sick. So why is that his problem? I don't get it. Why is that the left's problem in this country? Like it's really crazy how hard they're pushing it, but it seems like vaccinated people are generally okay. And everyone who wants the vaccine can get it. So I'm not understanding the obsession with this. It seems bizarre, but let's keep going.
that doesn't mean, given what's going on, that vaccinated people shouldn't take precautions in certain places. So let's look at the new CDC guidelines updated yesterday. When you've been fully vaccinated, okay, if you were fully vaccinated, you can participate in many of the activities that you did before the pandemic. To maximize protection from the Delta variant and prevent possibly spreading it to others, wear a mask indoors in public if you are in an area of substantial or high transmission. That is a major change. Whereas before the position was, if you're vaccinated, you don't really need to wear a mask anywhere. The new guidelines are, if you're vaccinated, but you're indoors in public, meaning not with 5 other people whose vaccination status you know, but if you're in public indoors and in an area of high transmission, which you can look at a county by county level, substantial or high transmission, the new recommendation is to wear a mask. For me, what does that mean? Well, that means when I go to the grocery store, the mask is going back on. It goes on to say, the new guidelines, wearing a mask is most important if you have a weakened immune system or if because of your age or an underlying medical condition, you are at increased risk for severe disease, or if someone in your household has a weakened immune system, is at increased risk for severe disease, or is unvaccinated. If this applies to you or your household, you might choose to wear a mask regardless of the level of transmission in your area. You should continue to wear a mask where required by laws, rules, regulations, or local guidance. So this is a significant change, and we are seeing the spike. I mean, if you look at the US case numbers, you will see that starting, right around June 22nd, about a month ago, after getting down below 10,000 cases per day, cases started to go up, including even some 65,000 case days, now up to an average of about 57,000 cases per day. Now, what's the hope here? The hope is that much like we are starting to see in some other countries, for example, if you look at the UK, which was essentially one of the hubs of the Delta variant, We have already apparently hit the peak of cases in the UK. The peak in the UK of Delta seems to have happened around July 22nd, and they are now down from about 46,000 cases a day to about 32,000. That's a significant reduction. The hope is that what is now a sort of leveling out, as you can see over the last few days, the cases aren't continuing to increase in the US, they're sort of flattening out. The hope would be we are now going to be on the decline, but we don't know if we are, and part of that depends, of course, on taking precautions.
Are we not to a point here with this? Like, are we just going to do this every time? It's a coronavirus. It's in the same family of viruses as the common cold. Like, we are going to have a million strains of this. It's going to, it's going to be mutating and adapting. And just like the common cold, it's going to be impossibly infectious. It's a coronavirus. We should expect this. So at a certain point, are we going to say, hey, business owners, make your own choices. Hey, local governments, make your own choices. Hey, individuals, make your own choices. Individual institutions, make your own choices. At some point, we have to, right? At some point, this obsession with this is going to have to end. It's never going to go away. I mean, this is going to be with us like the cold is, or like the flu is. I don't see a way around that.
So let's not go crazy one way or the other. I think there's a lot of hyperbole on both sides here, and I'm not playing a both sides game. The people responsible for this are overwhelmingly the unvaccinated people and the people taking no precautions. But the reactions have been sort of extreme on both sides. There's one side that 2 months ago said the pandemic is over. Many of these people were never wearing masks. Many of these people are still not vaccinated, and they're going back and to quote Dr. Anthony Fauci, letting it rip. That's an extreme reaction on one side because it's clearly not over. On the other side are the people who are seeing this and now saying, we are back to the pre-vaccine uncontrolled spread era. The truth is that for the Delta variant, if you're vaccinated, you're very well protected.
So Bespoke Post, they just send you a cool box every month.
This is kind of awesome.
And that protection is bolstered by people around you being vaccinated. Now, just like with the flu, there are people who are vaccinated, who are otherwise mostly healthy, who will get what's called a breakthrough case, and they will end up hospitalized, and a few of them are going to die. And that's a terrible and tragic thing. But it's important to remember that also happens with the flu. And that doesn't mean we ignore this fact, but it also doesn't mean that we all of a sudden believe there's no protection and we're going back to the pre-vaccine COVID era. The truth is that, for the most part, you are quite well protected if you are vaccinated. You are really unlikely to get very sick. You are really unlikely to die. However, you could spread it. You could spread it to someone who is in a more compromised position. And although that's the situation with the Delta variant, the more people remain unvaccinated and the more the spread continues, the next variant could be more deadly. The next variant could be even more transmissible. And as we've said before, imagine if this had an 8% mortality rate or a 10% mortality rate. I don't know that people are looking to read about this type of stuff right now. I don't know if people are looking for this type of fiction, but I recently read Lawrence Wright's pandemic novel. I believe it's called The End of October, where it's a very similar situation to the one we have, except it's like a 10% death rate instead of a 0.8% death rate or whatever we believe the real infection fatality rate to be. That is a dramatically different situation. The more we don't get vaccinated and the more this continues to spread, it increases the chances of such a variant developing in the future.
I mean, a variant is going to develop in the future, though. That's the thing. No matter who gets vaccinated, even if 100% of everyone got vaccinated, it's going to spread. Even if every single person in the country got the vaccine, there's going to be some percentage who can still carry it with the vaccine, right? No vaccine is going to be 100%. And a lot of what I've heard on this vaccine is that it's preventing symptoms, but people can still carry it anyway. So if the virus continues to live and it's reproducing at an impossibly fast speed relative to us, right? We live like 90 years. So a virus that lives maybe a handful of seconds or a couple of minutes and is reproducing consistently, right? In that situation, you get really, really fast mutation. You have really increased speed of natural selection. And once again, this is like a cold virus. So I do think with this that there's like a fundamental difference because I've heard a lot from left-wing people. I've heard a lot of right-wing people say some crazy shit. There is crazy shit going on the right, for sure. But also, I've heard a lot of left-wing people talk about, like, the misinformation and the anti-vaxxers and blah, blah, and blah, blah. And, like, I live in Seattle. I'm not around, like, a bunch of rednecks or anything. I don't necessarily know what's going on in, like, the deep red country. But Yeah, I know people who are definitely not on like the mainstream left wing side of this, and it's not denying the potential danger. You know, I just had a conversation with a couple of friends just like last weekend. We were saying like, well, if this did come back at like a 10-15% death rate, would we be willing to go back into lockdowns? It's not a denial that it's there or a denial that it could become more dangerous, but around the table, it was like, no, I'll take a 10 or 15% chance, right? If there was a 10% chance of 28-year-old white kids in the Northwest who are relatively healthy dying from this, I probably still would not choose to go back into lockdowns. Like, I cannot do that. I think there are a lot of people who cannot do that again, psychologically. Like, that would be, from my perspective, that would be worse than a 10% chance of death. And I think there are a lot of people in that boat where it's not a denial of the medicine, or it's not a denial of academia, or it's not a denial of what we know about this so far, or, what's been advertised. It's like a fundamental moral difference between how much, honestly, from my perspective, which obviously my perspective is probably biased, but from my perspective, it seems like there's a difference between how much people value living their lives versus how much people fear dying, right? So I think there are some people who fear dying less and are more committed to living their lives and not wasting years in in what practically might as well be a coma, sitting in their apartment scared of some virus. And then there's some people who are really afraid of dying and spending another year or two sitting in their apartment doing nothing doesn't sound bad to them at all. And so some of what I've seen is just so divisive. It's acting like anyone who doesn't support never going outside again in their life must think that the moon landings were faked or something. And it's just like, you know what? Even with the vaccine, it's not unreasonable that there could be a total fuck up with this vaccine. Like, it happens in medicine all the time. I think medical mistakes are like the third leading cause of death in the United States. And I think it was the Ebola vaccine. There was some recent vaccine. I think it was Ebola, I'm pretty sure, where same thing, the FDA gave emergency approval and it ended up having some kind of negative effect. So, yeah, I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding between two philosophies of life or worldviews going on here to some extent.
Sure. So these are the rules at this point in time. People asking me if I'm canceling my upcoming travel. I'm not. And the reason I'm not is this situation of different pops and spreads, particularly among the unvaccinated, is likely to continue for a couple of years. And so if I'm not willing to travel now, I probably shouldn't travel for years. And I've made the decision in speaking with friends who are doctors and others that right now, based on when I got vaccinated and based on this particular variant and based on the fact that I'll be wearing a mask everywhere that it's recommended, I don't see a particular reason to cancel that trip now. But a lot of the questions are, where are you going and what is your health status, et cetera. One example, we're talking on the bonus show today, Nevada is going fully mask back on. And people are being advised to avoid Las Vegas. The level of uncontrolled spread in Las Vegas is so high. The case positivity rate is so high that that's a point where people are being told, just don't go there. And I don't plan to. So that's the situation there. One of our sponsors is Steady MD Prime.
Okay, so even that, I'm not wearing a mask again. I got the vaccine. No, I have the vaccine at this point. He was just saying it's not dangerous if you got the vaccine. Not as dangerous. Not as potentially dangerous. So you'd think if there are these new variants, probably while I'm vaccinated against the first one, it probably wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for exposure to vaccines if they're going to have very little, or to new variants, if they're going to have very little effect, so that I can build immunities and, be exposed to it. Whatever the case might be, however it goes, I'm not rock climbing in a mask. I'm just not doing any of this stuff again. The hockey rink, if they try to lock down again and try to go full mask hysteria again, I'm just going to Mexico because it's just not worth it to me. Even if it was a really high death rate, and I was in a really particular risk category, I'm just not doing it again. It's too ridiculous. Like, life has dangers. This is one of them. You know, we all accept. I rode my motorcycle home today. It's what are the chances? You know, what are the statistics going? 60 miles on the freeway a day on a motorcycle. What are the chances of that killing me? Like, they're probably high, but I do it anyway. It uses less gas and it's more fun than the car. There are things I'm willing to take on risk for certain things in life. And that just seems to be like, the idea of that seems to be just totally out of the window right now. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens with this. I mean, to be fair, David Pakman's view wasn't like that insane or unreasonable. Obviously, for like a very dyed-in-the-wool kind of cuckish left-winger, at least he's saying he's going to go on his flights and whatever, and not pandering to like the full hysteria people. So yeah, I just think there are people who view life and view the world very differently, and we'll see if those two sides can ever live with each other. If not, maybe we should split up the states, 25 and 25, and we all get our own states and leave each other the hell alone. That doesn't sound that horrible to me either. We could already do it. We basically already have blue and red states. So, yeah, that's all I got on that.